On a plane transporting prisoners, a man who was extremely dangerous and mysterious was brought on board. Unlike the other prisoners, his face was wrapped in a rock-like mask, and his body was covered with locked iron chains. Because he was too dangerous, he was tied alone in the last row. All the other prisoners were trying to escape, but he only twisted his neck slightly, and a tooth with a thin wire dropped from his mouth. He felt around to pick the locks, ready for the explosion he knew was coming. The plane was still 600 meters above the ground, and their emergency landing point was a valley in Alaska. The prisoners began attacking the marshals and the pilots, and amid the chaos, a bearded man stepped forward. The town sheriff received news of thick smoke nearby, so Sheriff Frank and his officers took a helicopter and flew toward the smoke. It was the crash site of the prisoner plane. At the scene, they found several dead marshals and the removed iron shackles. Frank looked at the plane and then discovered a survivor.
We got a live one!
Suddenly, a prisoner appeared and pinned Frank down. His gun was knocked away. At that critical moment, another surviving marshal from the plane appeared. A bullet almost hit Frank, because that marshal was blind. The CIA director was preparing to send Agent Sheed to Alaska. The prisoner's name was Havelock, and his transfer was part of the director's secret plan. But because the transport plane belonged to the marshals, the pilots and guards on board had no idea who the prisoner really was. Before Sheed boarded the plane, the director told him about Frank, instructing Sheed to use him, capture Havelock before anyone else did, and keep the secret transfer from being exposed. At that time, Frank was questioning the blind marshal who survived. The marshal said one prisoner had broken free and tampered with the plane. He didn't know that man's real identity, only that the plane suddenly changed course to an airbase, where they picked up that mysterious prisoner. By then, Agent Sheed had arrived at the site with 2 agents. Frank knew the CIA had no authority over the marshal's plane, so he tried to get an explanation from Sheed, but Sheed refused, saying it was a classified mission, until Frank said the name Havelock.
Where'd you hear that name?
At that moment, Havelock had already entered a wooden cabin. Back at the command center, a staff member reported that the weather station had received an unencrypted signal from an observer. Havelock had packed his supplies, but the dog outside started barking. Havelock noticed the signal device, and realized the old man had given himself away.
What did you do?
Frank and his team stopped 400 meters from the cabin, and prepared to approach on foot. When they entered the cabin, they started searching. But after breaking in again, both Havelock and the old man were gone, so Frank chased outside. He told Havelock to release the hostage, and promised to take him away safely, but Sheed kept shouting for Frank to shoot. Havelock let his guard down, and asked to talk with Frank alone. Hearing that, Sheed panicked, cut the iron chain, and sent the guard dog charging forward.
Oh, call it off! Jim, call your fucking dog off! Call it off!
After the dog attacked, the man was already dead. He wasn't Havelock, but that result pleased Sheed. Still, his actions made others suspicious.
It's not Havelock.
Back at the command center, all the prisoners were gathered. She took a file from a staff member's hand, and noticed that one of the bodies in a prison uniform wasn't actually a prisoner.
Except this guy wasn't a prisoner.
That's when Frank realized Havelock was the marshal pretending to be blind. Panicking, Frank immediately called his wife.
What about him?
Ranger, okay? He's not a guard. He's a prisoner. A prisoner. Get out of the building. Notify the nearest police officer, okay? I'm on my way.